A connection between the Nathrius and the Dreadlords has already been confirmed by Blizzard, but very loosely. Recently, we've learned that the Dreadlords essentially played everyone and that they're somehow tied to the Shadowlands, but to what extent we just don't know exactly. Connection to Revendreth seems incredible though. First we got Castle Nathria, Nathrezim, the Dreadlord planet Nathreza. Does it ring a bell? Then the visual similarities between beings of Revendreth and the Dreadlords are quite significant, and not to mention the biggest source of evidence, which is the book report Enemy Infiltration. So, what is the connection between Sire Denathrius and the Dreadlords? I'd like to thank Ridgevault for sponsoring this video. They've sent it to me about a month ago. I've used it. It is great. You can fit 12 cards on the side. You can fit cash here as well. And it is so much better in terms of space when compared to this old wallet that I've had. There are over 30 colors and styles including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. There is a lifetime warranty and a test drive for 45 days, meaning if you don't love it, you can send it back. If you go to ridge.com/Doron, you can get 10% off as well as free worldwide shipping. Check out the link in the description below. Dreadlords have been a staple of the franchise since Warcraft 3. We've seen them dabble in almost everything that happened, and we always knew that they were incredibly cunning, as after all it was Morganus that tricked Arthas and that turned him ultimately into the Lich King. However, until Shadowlands we never really knew the extent of their trickery, as they went from kinda impressive to wow, these guys are like the masters of the entire universe. It is most likely them that they smuggled the artifacts of the Jailer into Azeroth, and we know that they were behind the creation of the Lich King, and from this perspective it is quite obvious that all of this has been a plan to break the connection and to ultimately free the Jailer. The most notable pieces of information that we have is the book Enemy Infiltration that has been data mined a few months ago, that really seems like a Dreadlord reporting to someone of his findings, operations, and current progress of the operation. The book describes how they plan to corrupt essentially everyone across the cosmology chart, like the entire universe, from the Titans to the Void Lords to life forces. It also makes it quite obvious that they were the ones that corrupted Sargeras and ultimately started the entire Burning Crusade, and that they led to the downfall of the Titan Pantheon. Even more interesting is some information from before that said cunning ones kneel before 6 masters but serve only one. Initially, we believed that this referred to the Jailer and the Nathrezim, but it could in fact be Sire Denathrius, the eternal one that rules the realm of Revendreth. At this point, we definitely know that he is in league with the Jailer, and most likely has been for a really long time in attempt to revert the old state of things. Here are some quite obvious connections. First is the visuals. The gargoyle type beings definitely look like the Dreadlords and even Denathrius himself, especially if you observe Denathrius and his horns and his feet. Now obviously you might notice a difference, as the Dreadlords are a lot more monster-like. But my theory is that this is because they faked taking fell energy. Before, we believed that the Nathrezim were demons and one of the most loyal servants of Sargeras, but now it is quite obvious that they just played him all along. They say in the book that consuming fell energy is not a pleasant process, but a necessary one. This would mean that they literally forced themselves to become demons in order to remain unseen and to completely dedicate themselves to the task, and that they didn't really enjoy this procedure. Now, you might ask, but what about Nathreza, their homeworld that we've seen in the Illidan novel in the Twisted Nether? I don't really think this retcons anything, as Nathreza, the planet that was nearly destroyed by Illidan, might have been their homeworld, but not their world of origin. It is likely that Nathreza is just a planet that they took over and was just used as their base of operations in order to serve their leader, Denathrius. Additionally, there are a lot more subtle hints out there. We know that Denathrius created a Venthyr, so we know that he has the ability to create races. In the book, the possible Dreadlord says, "This is, after all, the solemn duty for which you sired us." First of all, the most obvious is the use of the word sired, and you know, Sire Denathrius. And the second, they mention that he created them for a purpose. To add to this point, the most obvious one is the name. We got the headquarters of the Denathrius, Castle Nathria. Well, obviously the name Nathrezim and the fact that they named their supposed homeworld Nathreza. Does it ring a bell to Castle Nathria? It is likely that their master named them after his own castle, his own base of operations, as they seem like his most important agents in the entire universe. Now, even more information. This book, Enemy Infiltration, is found in a place called the Tower of the Unseen Guests, sort of as a journal. For years, we've known the Dreadlords. This was before the Shadowlands. We've known them by the name Talkitun, which in their language means unseen guests. I mean, Tower of Unseen Guests, and a race that calls themselves yourselves unseen guests. I think this is beyond just a simple hint. Also, the way the book itself is written really reads like the Afterlife's Revendreth propaganda. It kinda has the same tone. To our most wondrous and resplendent master, I am pleased to state that after a lengthy study of our rivals, I have completed my observations. This really reads in the aristocratic tone of Sire Denathrius. Even more evidence is in Revendreth, the accuser tells Sire Denathrius, "You were once the Lord of Dread." Lord of Dread? Dreadlords? Does it sound familiar? Lastly, there is one hint that is really stretching it, but is incredibly interesting when you read it. So, you know the four most notable Dreadlords, Deathrock, Balnazar, Varimatras, Tychondrius? Well, if you take letters from their name, it actually adds up to the name of Denathrius. Denathrius, Deathrock, Denathrius, Balnazar, Denathrius, Varimatras, and lastly, Denathrius, Tychondrius. This one is definitely a stretch, but literally when you take the prefixes and the suffixes, it definitely makes a lot of sense. It seems like their names were formed from his own. So really, when we take all this information in consideration, you gotta admit that the evidence is definitely lines up. It isn't just one hint that we are stretching like crazy. I mean, even Blizzard confirmed this in a way. The user said that he wants to avoid spoilers, but that the resemblance between the Nathreza and the Dreadlords is intentional. What more evidence do you need? So obviously it isn't just us putting on a tinfoil hat, and there is definitely something behind this. However, in order to find out what exactly is this connection, all we can do right now is just wait and see how Shadowlands progresses. Thank you for watching. Check out the theory if the Jailer and the Arbiter is the same character, and also check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.